Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Meaningful Motivations with Tracy Erickson. And of course, if you are new to this channel, welcome. My name is Tracy Erickson, and in this video, we are going to explore the spiritual significance of bees. Basically, we are going to look at the symbolic meaning behind a bee. So stay tuned. I live in Iowa, and it is currently the end of January, which means it is wintertime and it's usually very cold, and we normally would not see any type of insect this time of year. But yesterday was a very nice and sunny day here in Iowa, and my husband and I were enjoying the weather outside on our deck when suddenly a bee began flying around my head. And then another bee came along and was flying around my head as well. And then they also began flying around my husband's head. And when this was all over, we finally just sat down and we were like, wow, when was the last time we saw a bee in January? You see, sometimes you can have experiences with things in nature that don't really seem significant. But sometimes you might have an experience with something that keeps repeating in your life, or something that seems to stand out in some way, such as having this experience with a couple of bees flying around our heads in the month of January in Iowa. So if something like that in nature stands out as strange or significant, it might actually be a message from spirit and something that you should pay attention to. I started to think about it, and then I remembered that at the end of September of just last year, when I got home from my visit with my grandpa in Henderson, I had this strange experience with bees on my deck as well. But I kind of put that idea on the back burner. And since this bee experience just happened yesterday, I decided now is the time for me to really take a look at the meaning behind this message that the bee has been trying to give to me since last fall. So, of course, I decided immediately to look into the actual habits of bees so that I could gain a greater understanding of the possible message that the bee was trying to give to me. Bees have a lot of habits that are tied to living in colonies. So they live in colonies because that is how they gather their food, and it's also how they respond to the environment around them. So honeybees are very social creatures and live in colonies that have a queen, they have worker bees, and they have drone bees. A colony can have tens of thousands of members, and the queen lays the eggs, the workers build the nest and care for the eggs and gather the food. That habit of the bees to live in a colony and kind of work in different areas of that colony to make it all run in a very smooth way, that just reminded me of humans being basically a part of a society. So we have all of these little societies that we've built in humanity, and each of us humans are basically working our own little part within the whole. And whether we recognize it or not all the time, I do believe that part of the message from the bee is the fact that whatever job you're doing in the world is actually contributing to the whole. So in some way, it's time to consider your piece in the bigger scheme of things. I also learned that bees basically spend their days collecting food. They're most active in the spring because they like to collect pollen and nectar from flowers. But they come out in the morning and they return to the beehive at dusk. And so they gather pollen, nectar, and water, and they bring these things back to the hive. As I thought of these food gathering habits of these busy little bees, it also reminded me that this is likely a spiritual message about working toward a common goal with that society in which you live. So it could be about considering your place in society, but also the work that you do. Now, this is also a message telling you good job on your work, because bees are just focused and continuously fly back and forth from the hive to the fields all day long until the sun goes down. And they never even complain. They simply collect what they're there to collect and continue on, continue on. So it could be a message that now's the time to just get to work on something. Now's the time to be focused on your actual goal here in the physical world. I just got the spiritual message that it was about really prioritizing time and making the right choices in what it is that we're focusing our attention on at this time. When it comes to nesting, honeybees build nests in tree cavities, rock crevices, and other places similar to that. Solitary bees will build nests in the ground or in dead wood. And some bees build nests in clay banks, walls, or even in some plants. My first thought was that basically it sounds like a bee will use whatever resources that are at their disposal in their environment to create their own nest. So in that way, I feel like the spiritual message there is that it's important to use the environment that you're in to your advantage. So rather than constantly searching outside of yourself to create this perfect environment, you should take the tools that you already have here and, basically create the environment that you need. I also thought for a minute that maybe these bees that I've been seeing on my deck are solitary bees because, they live in dead wood and things like that. So it is possible that my bees are solitary bees. Therefore, I could look deeper into that specific type of bees meaning as well if I want to go even deeper into my own specific spiritual message. I also learned that honeybees become dormant in the winter and live on food reserves. And that is just a lot like me in general. When it's wintertime and the sun is going down so much earlier, it's cold outside, I'm usually basically very dormant. And I'm not as inspired to get to work, But when spring comes, that's when I start to stir, just like the bees. And so I think that there's a spiritual message there that you should definitely listen to your own internal cycles and don't push yourself so hard that you become burnt out. I think that the spiritual message in the dormancy of the bees normally this time of year is that it's important to rest when rest is needed, but to get up and get out there when the time is right. And of course, I checked my Taschen's book of symbols for the bee, and the bee is actually in there as well. So within the book of symbols for the honeybee, it actually taught me about how the honeycomb is created. And it says here, comb-building bees fill themselves with honey, hook together in long loops, and through a sort of meditative process, turn the honey into wax, which they secrete from their abdomens and sculpt into clusters of intricate hexagonal cells so ingeniously formed that a mere 1.5 ounces of wax can hold 4 pounds of honey. The container and contained being different manifestations of one and the same substance. Thus, Christ was referred to as honey in the rock, for soul is to body as honey is to comb, divine essence housed in earthly vessel. And then I thought of the phrase hive mind and the fact that when all of a society comes together, and that alone kind of creates this buzz around certain types of thoughts, right? So that reminded me too, when I read about the honeycomb making, that we all create this particular universal mind, right? So while we are each individual units within this colony, we are also all contributing to the universal cause. So the thing that affects us all. And so therefore, this could also be a message to understand the importance of speaking truth, the importance of being a beacon for the good, because not only does it affect you, but it's affecting the entire whole at the same time. So I feel like bees are important not only in the pollination of our entire planet, which spiritually speaking means that they're also connected to the symbolism of fertility, and prosperity and abundance. But it's also about your contribution as an individual unit to the whole. So the work that you do in the world, no matter how small, is contributing to the whole in a big way, even if you have no idea how it's happening. So since you are more important than you even sometimes believe you are, it's time to really focus on the things that are important and the things that will make the whole become stronger and even better. I almost forgot another thing that I learned from the bees is that a bee can usually only use its stinger once, because as soon as a bee stings something, it is then basically sentenced to death, because many bees will lose their stinger and then eventually die after stinging. So symbolically speaking, obviously, that is a reminder that what you do to others, you are actually doing to yourself. So basically, be careful with the way that you are interacting with the other people around you, with the things in the environment around you, because you can either go along happily about your day, or one bad move could ruin everything. Well, that about wraps it up for this video. So if you like this video, be sure to click that like button. And of course, if you're a viewer but not yet a subscriber, I am inviting you now to click subscribe down below. And once you have subscribed, you can turn on that notifications bell if you want to be notified each and every time I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching and spending your time with me. I love you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.